good, not just when the money comes in, not just when people clap with you for your especially. I'm talking about when you're tired, you're lost, when you feel invisible, when your mind is full of excuses, your soul is weak. That's when it matters most. A lot of people wake up every day trying to make a living. That's fine. You got bills, you got mouths to feed, you got responsibilities. But let me tell you something. If your whole life is about surviving, about just getting through the day, about staying comfortable and protecting your little routine, then you are wasting the gift you're given. You are breathing, but you're not living. You are moving, but you're not advancing. I've seen what happens when a man spends his whole life hiding inside excuses. He starts blaming his parents, his past, his boss, the economy, the government, the town he grew up in, the people who doubted him. He builds a whole damn identity around what held him back. That's the trap. Because once you make your pain your personality, you stop fighting. You start limiting to your limitations, like they deserve your respect. They don't. You gotta ask yourself a hard question. What am I doing with what I've been given? Not what did I wish for? Not what did someone else give? Not why does that person have more talent, or support, luck, or love? None of that matters. The only thing that matters is what you do with the hands you were dealt when the room is cold, odds are bad, and nobody's coming to save you. That's where greatness starts. It starts when you stop cursing the darkness, and become a man or woman who can walk through it, playing your chest. It starts when gratitude becomes discipline, when faith becomes action, when service becomes your standard. Because if all your gifts end with you, your strength is not just for flexing. Your wisdom is not just for sounding smart. Your scars are not just old damage. They are proof that you survived the fire and now you own the world's truth. Everybody has something. A voice, a mind, a body, a story, a hunger, a deep itch in the soul that won't let them sit still. Most people don't know because answering that call means change. It means risk. It means killing the weak version of yourself that got addicted to comfort. But that itch is real. That restlessness is real. It's not going to torture you. It's going to wake you up. I know that feeling. It's the voice that shows up when everybody else is asleep and asks you why you're settling for a watered-down version of your potential. Maybe your gift is leadership. Maybe it's discipline. Maybe it's compassion forged through pain. Maybe it's the ability to endure what breaks other people. Whatever it is, it was not given to you so you can sit around comparing, complaining, and playing small. It was given to you to grow, to serve, to build, to lift, to fight for something bigger than your own fear. So stop asking whether life has been fair. It hasn't. Stop asking whether the path is easy. It won't be. Ask instead whether you are finally ready to become useful, honest, and dangerous in the right way. Ask whether you are done wasting the one life you've been handed. Are you going to keep making a living? Are you following the decisions? Thank you for being here, for listening, and for walking into this hard truth with me today. Let me tell you something about me at the bottom. The bottom has a language. It speaks of doubt. It speaks of humiliation. It speaks of silence. When nobody sees anything in you, you damn sure can't see anything in yourself. That's where a lot of people quit. Not because they don't have potential. Because they mistake the bottom for the end of the story. I was around 20 years old, broken spirit, unsure of my direction, carrying more questions than answers. That kind of season strips you down. It shows you what's really in your head when the spotlight is off, with applause is. And sometimes, right in that dark season, life sends you a signal. Not a guarantee, not a miracle, a signal. Something small, a sentence, a moment. A person who sees a spark in you before the fire is visible. That kind of moment can change everything. But only if you're listening. Too many people are waiting for the entire staircase to appear. They want certainty before effort. They want proof before sacrifice. They want the outcome before they pay the price. That's not how this works. Sometimes all you get is one strange moment that lands in your chest and refuses to leave. Somebody says something about your future. Somebody notices something in you. Somebody calls out a strength you've been too blind, too scared to play. Most people hear that and smile for a second, and go back to this. That's why they stay average. Because the truth is, hearing a calling is one thing. answering it is another piece entirely. When someone first sees something in you, it doesn't magically remove fear. It actually makes the fear louder. Because now you got a choice. Now you can no longer pretend you don't know. Now you can't hide behind convictions forever. Now you've been confronted with possibility. The possibility is dangerous to the mind. Why? Because it demands responsibility. The second you realize you might be capable of more, your excuses start dying. And most people love their excuses more than love their potential. That's why they stay stuck in the same city, same mindset. You want change. Do you really? Because change isn't inspiration. Change is separation. It means separating from the old identity that made peace with mediocrity. It means stepping outside the little box you built to protect your ego. That box is comfortable. Inside that box, nobody judges you because you never risk enough to be judged. Inside that box, failure can't touch you because you never attempted anything hard enough to fail. Inside that box, you can spend your whole life talking about what you could have been. That box is a coffin, and most people decorate it with excuses. You gotta get out of that damn box and get stupid for a while. You gotta serve for a while. You gotta recognize for a while. You gotta underestimate it for a while. Because the path of becoming somebody different is not clean. It's awkward. It's painful. It's lonely. It's through the moments where your own self begs you to go back to what's familiar. Don't go back. That whisper in your spirit, that restlessness, that feeling that your life is supposed to be more than this repetitive cycle of fear and routine, that is not weakness. That is your assignment calling your name. But your assignment doesn't care about your comfort. It wants your courage. It wants your discipline. It wants your willingness to move before you feel ready. And hear me clearly. Dreaming is not enough. Talking is not enough. Wanting more is not enough. You gotta take that inner signal and turn it into direction. Turn it into action. Turn it into a standard. Because a dream with no structure is just mental entertainment. It makes you feel good for a minute while your body stays exactly the same. So when life gives you that signal, if somebody sees something in you, but it kind of tells you what's another level, but they're able, don't just nod your head and go back to sleep. Stand up, step out, find the pattern. Box you're hiding in is not protecting you. It is burying you alive. People say they don't want a life, but what they really want is a guarantee. They want the dream without the risk. They want the transformation without the suffering. They want the result without the repeat humiliation of being bad at something long enough to become dangerous at it. That is why they stay there. You do not become uncommon by protecting yourself from failure. You become uncommon by building a relationship with it. The world is lying to a lot of people. They told them failure is a verdict. They told them falling means stop. They told them missing your shot, losing your job, getting rejected, looking foolish, starting over, being doubted, being outworked, being underestimated. They told them all of that means maybe this path is not for you. That is a weak philosophy for weak people who want comfort or their growth. Failure is information. Failure is instruction. Failure is a tuition bill for a stronger life. But most people never catch the lesson because their pride gets in the way. They miss once and make it personal. They stumble once and call themselves broken. They get embarrassed once and decide they were never built for greatness. Now, you are just not used to pain being a part of life. You were trained to avoid discomfort, not confusing. That has to change. You need goals, goals, not vague wishes you post over. Not fantasies that make you feel inspired for 20 minutes a week for the next 20 years. I'm talking about targets that demand something from yourself. Targets that force you to become disciplined, focused, and honest. Because a dream is soft. A goal has teeth. A dream floats in your head. A goal drags your ass out of bed. When it is cold, early, inconvenient, and nobody cares. And once you set that target, you need the guts to risk something for it. You need to be willing to bet your comfort, your image, your excuses, and your old identity. You need to be willing to meet new people, hear hard truths, test new ideas, and let life shape you through pressure instead of hiding from it. The people you meet matter. The standards you accept matter. The things you tolerate matter. The energy you keep around you either sharpens you or softens you. So choose carefully. Some people are waiting for the perfect time to commit. There is no perfect time. There is only now. Pressure instead of hiding from it. The people you meet matter. The standards you accept matter. To risk something for it. You need to be willing to bet your comfort, your image, your excuses, and your own identity. You need to be willing to meet new people, hear hard truths, test new ideas, and let life shape you through pressure instead of hiding from it. The people you meet matter. The standards you accept matter. The things you tolerate matter. The energy you keep around you either sharpens you or softens you. So choose carefully. Some people are waiting for the perfect time to commit. There is no perfect time. There's only now, and what you do with now. Commitment gets you started. Consistency gets you finished. That is the law. The reason most people never cross the line is not because they lack talent. It is because they stop when the excitement dies. They perform only when motivated. They disappear when it gets repetitive. They want to crown, but they hate the forge. That is why they remain average. The truth is, nobody remembers how many times you missed once you finally connected. This clicks after the game-winning shot. Nobody talks about the 1,000 failed attempts after the microphone comes on. They remember the breakthrough. They remember the finish. But the finish belongs to the one who kept going when progress was invisible. That is how you move forward, by following forward. Not by pretending you're fearless. Not by acting like failure does not hurt. It hurts. It hurts. It exposes you. You're built right. Every hit teaches you how to hit back better. Every setback becomes fuel. Every rejection becomes condition. Every hard season becomes proof that you were fit to fight. So stop playing small to protect your skill. Stop lowering your standards so you can feel safe. Stop underliving your life because you are scared to look foolish on the road to becoming great. You do not need a softer path. You need a stronger mind. And that mind is built the hard way. Risk, through pain, through repetition, through refusing to quit when quit would be easier. That is where real confidence comes from. Not from flaws, from surviving what should have broken you and still showing up ready for more. Let's end with the truth. Most people spend their whole lives trying to avoid. Being busy is not the same as getting better. A lot of people are in motion all day long. They answer emails, talk about goals, make plans, buy books, watch videos, post quotes, tell everybody how locked in they are. But when you strip the noise away, they are still the same person. Same discipline problems, same weak habits, same fragile mindset, same excuses dressed up in new language. That is fake progress. That is movement without transformation. And that kind of lie will steal your whole life. Because if you can convince yourself that activity equals growth, you never have to confront the truth that you are running in place. You never have to ask whether your daily actions actually match the future you claim you want. You never have to face the gap between the person you perform as and the person you really are when nobody's watching. That gap is where lives get wasted. Real progress is quieter than people think. It is not always glamorous. It is not always visible. It is built in the dark, inside daily discipline, inside repeated effort, inside choices so small and so consistent that we people ignore them because they look boring. But boring is where the winners are built. Repetition is where the mind is built. Consistency is where character stops being theory and becomes identity. Hard work works. Not sometimes. Not when you feel inspired. It works when you keep showing up long after the mood is gone. That means every day you have to ask, am I actually improving? Or am I just staying occupied so I can avoid the harder truth? Am I building skill, patience, endurance, faith, self-control? Or do I just keep myself distracted enough to feel productive? To be honest. Because life does not reward appearances. It rewards substance. It rewards the one who trains when it's inconvenient. The one who studies when nobody is grading it. The one who keeps promises to himself. The one who does not need an audience to stay locked in. The one who understands that discipline is not punishment. It is freedom. Freedom from the chaos of your own habits. Freedom from the weakness that used to run your life. Freedom from needing everything to feel good before you decide to do it. And once you build something in yourself, once you sharpen your mind, your body, your spirit, once you stop wasting your gifts, start multiplying, understand this. It is not just for you. You cannot take your money with you. You cannot take your titles, your followers, your possessions, or your image. All of that stays here. What matters is what you do with your time. What matters is whether your strength may stand up, whether your courage helps somebody else stand up, whether your discipline became an example, whether your scars became instruction, whether your life is proof that pain can be transformed into purpose. That is the final level of growth. Not just getting yourself out of hell, but becoming useful enough to help somebody else find a way out too. So you keep taking risks, keep failing big, keep setting goals that scare you, keep working when it is dull, repetitive, lonely, and thankless. Keep refusing the fake reward of looking busy while secretly staying the same. Don't just move, advance. Don't just exist, build. Don't just chase success. Become somebody who can carry it without losing their soul. The world does not need more talented people wasting themselves in time. It needs people who are disciplined enough to turn potential into service. People who stop playing with their lives and finally decide to become exact, relentless, and real. At the end of all this, that is the question. Not whether you were gifted, not whether life was fair, not whether the path was hard, but whether you had the courage to use what you were given fully, honestly, causes that switch to flip, the overdrive, the beast mode, the full-on destroyer that will not stop. Most people think that switch is some kind of magic. They think one day they're going to wake up feeling inspired, feeling fearless, feeling ready to attack life. That's why they stay average. They are waiting on a mood, waiting on motivation, waiting on the stars to line up so they can finally become who the fuck they keep telling themselves they want to be. That's not how it works. The switch gets flipped when you stop treating your life like a conversation, start treating it like a command. Not maybe, not later, not let me think about it. I'm talking about binary code, yes or no, black or white, on or off. Are you going to get in the train today? Yes or no? Are you going to feed your weakness? Yes or no? Are you going to keep lying to yourself? Yes or no? Are you going to win the war against the weak version of you? Yes or no? That is where the destroyer mode lives. I learned this the hard way. There were too many mornings in my life when pain was sitting on my chest like a 1,000-pound weight. My body was wrecked. My mind was tired. Every excuse you could imagine was lined up, ready to brief me on why today should be the day I back off. Too sore, too tired, too stressed, too beat up, too damn human. And that's the problem right now. Most people let that weak human inside their head. They give every excuse a microphone. They let weakness make a presentation. Then they call that being realistic. No. That's called surrender before the battle even starts. When I was going through hell, I had to build a mind that did not negotiate with feelings. Because feelings are unstable. Feelings shift with comfort. Feelings shift with fear. Feelings shift with weather, sleep, pain, rejection, and doubt. If you let feelings drive now, life's going straight to the I drove the principle. The mission came first. The answer's already made before the feeling even showed up. Yes, I train. Yes, I get up. Yes, I keep going. Yes, I do the hard thing. See, real power is not in being hyped. Real power is in making a decision for the moment gets hard. And once the moment gets hard, your untrained mind will try to save you from growth. It will pay for comfort. Like comfort is oxygen, but comfort is not oxygen. Comfort is a drug. And most people are overdosing on it every single day. If not beast mode, then kill the gray zone in your life. Gray zone is where excuses breed. Gray zone is where procrastination hides. Gray zone is where your goals go to die. The strongest people on this planet are not always the most talented. They are the ones who made a decision and refuse to revisit it. They know that every time you hesitate, every time you entertain weakness, every time you say maybe, You are teaching yourself to be soft. So stop asking how to feel more motivated. Stop asking when the right time will come. Stop waiting for that perfect emotional state that never lasts. Become a machine with a soul. Discipline. Make your mind obey. Make your life fire. The question is not whether you know the right answer. Deep down, you already know. The real question is this. Are you finally ready to remove the fire and faith from your life and choose the harder path on purpose? And for being here, for facing this truth instead of running from it, thank you for walking this road with me. The weak voice in your head is not you. But if you keep listening to it, then it becomes your master. That's the fight most people lose from the sun that comes up. They wake up and that little voice is already talking. Too tired, too sore, too busy, too stressed. Maybe tomorrow, maybe after the weekend, maybe when life calms down a little bit. And just like that, the enemy can kick your ass. Life didn't beat you. You're handing over control from the inside. That's the pathetic part. Because people think the danger is outside of them. They think the danger is the hard workout, the long hours, the rejection, the grind, the sacrifice. No, the real danger is the voice that tells you to avoid all of it. The voice that speaks in a calm tone and calls weakness self-care. The voice that dresses up fear as wisdom. The voice that makes critics sound reasonable. I know that motherfucker well. There were years when my mind was a war zone. I had every reason to feel sorry for myself. I had pain in my past, pain in my body, pain in my future. I had every excuse lined up like soldiers ready for inspection. I could have built my whole identity around what happened to me, around being broken, around being limited, around saying life made me this way. And believe me, that voice tried. It whispered that I had done enough. It told me I was already hurting too much. It said I had burned a bridge. It said nobody would blame me if I backed off. But that's the thing about the weak mind. It doesn't need your permission to speak. It only needs your permission to stay. And I stopped giving it room. I had to learn how to lock down my mental house. No loose talk. No open doors. No casual conversation with weakness. When that voice came in with excuses, I didn't debate it. I didn't sit down and reason with it. I didn't build a damn therapy session around it. I recognized it for what it was. An intruder, an internal thief, trying to steal my future one soft decision at a time. That's what you have to understand. Every excuse costs something. Every time you let weakness speak unchecked, it takes a piece of your edge. It takes a little confidence, a little self-respect, a little belief. And over time, those little losses stack up until one day you wake up living a life you don't even recognize. Not because you got destroyed in one big moment, but because you got conquered in private by 1,000 small surrenders. So what do? You take command of your own brain house. You stop announcing your pain to the world like it's a badge of honor. You stop feeding excuses with language. You stop repeating weakness until it sounds true. You keep that shit contained. You get disciplined with your thoughts. You become aware of the patterns. You identify the phrases that always show up before you quit, before you procrastinate, before you fold. Then when they appear, you shut the door. You don't have to feel powerful. You have to act in power. Because your mind is always listening to what you tolerate. And once your mind sees that, you no longer entertain that lazy, weak, pathetic voice, something changes. The balance shifts. You stop being the hostage and start becoming the commander. You stop asking your mind for permission and start giving it orders. That is where self-respect begins. And once you learn to silence the voice that wants to keep you small, you become dangerous. Not to other people, to the weak version of yourself that has been running the show for far too long. Most people are waiting for life to get easier before they decide to move. That is why they stay stuck. They think action comes after clarity. They think momentum comes after confidence. They think discipline shows up when pain leaves the room. But life doesn't work like that. You do not get the green light first. You move, and then the path starts to reveal itself. You act, and then the strength begins to build. You suffer, and then you discover you were never as fragile as you thought you could. That is the shift. Once you stop letting excuses run your mind, you have to do something with that silence. You have to fill it with action. Because if all you do is think differently, but you still live the same, nothing changes. A better mindset with no movement is just another form of bullshit. It sounds good, It feels productive, but it produces nothing. Ask the hardest question in the middle of chaos. What am I going to do about this? Not who's going to help me. Not why is this happening to me. Not when will this pass. I'm talking about ownership. I'm talking about taking your hands off your hips, wiping the tears off your face, getting your ass off the ground, and doing something that moves your life forward, even if it's small, even if it's ugly, even if it hurts, especially when it hurts, because pain is where the truth gets exposed. When life is smooth, everybody has a plan. Everybody has confidence. Everybody talks about goals, purpose, vision, and growth. But where the progress gets slow, when the gym stops being sexy, when the results don't come, when the loneliness sets in, when the body aches and the mind starts spiraling, that's when you find out who the fuck you really are. I've been there. There were times I was running on legs that felt like they were filled with broken glass. Times I was chasing goals that seemed to get farther away the harder I pushed. Times I felt like I was empty, like I had nothing left to give. And yet life was still demanding more. That's where a lot of people break. Not because the challenge is impossible, but because the progress is invisible. They can't stand working without immediate proof that it matters. But that's the exact moment when it matters most. When you are barely making progress. When every step feels too damn small. When the mountain looks untouched no matter how hard you climb. That is where you build the real engine. That is where you teach yourself that action is not dependent on reward. That is where you become someone who can be trusted by himself. You need to conquer the whole thing today. You need to take the next step, then another, then another. That's how hard men and hard women are built. Not through one giant act of courage, but through 1,000 moments where they could have stopped and didn't. That's the code. Your situation may not be fair. Your circumstances may be brutal. You may be carrying weight nobody sees. Good. Now what are you going to do about it? That question separates victims from warriors. Victims explain. Warriors adapt. Victims stare at the storm. Warriors move through the storm, one brutal, deliberate step at a time. So stop measuring your effort only by visible results. Measure it by your refusal to stay down. Measure it by your willingness to act while uncertain. Measure it by your ability to keep moving. When nobody's clapping, nobody's watching, and nothing feels guaranteed. That's where transformation lives. Not in the hype, not in the plan, not in the perfect conditions. In action. Cold, ugly, relentless action. And once you learn to move like that, once you make action your answer to confusion, pain, and adversity, you start waiting for life to change and start becoming the one who changes it. Life is going to hit you in the fucking mouth. That is not negativity. That is reality. Some of you still think that if you do enough right, if you stay disciplined long enough, if you become strong enough, pain is eventually going to back off and leave you alone. That's a fantasy. Life does not care how focused you are. It does not care how much progress you make. It will still test you. It will still knock you off balance. It will still send chaos, loss, exhaustion, failure, injury, and doubt straight to your front door. The question is never whether that moment is coming. The question is what the fuck you are going to do when it gets here. Because when life gets heavy, your emotions start screaming. They tell you you've had enough. They tell you this is too much. They tell you to sit down, back off, lower the standard, protect yourself, wait for a better time. Emotion has a voice. And that voice gets loud when pain enters the room. Here's what most people never learn. Just because emotion is loud does not mean it is right. You cannot let emotion have the final vote. There were moments in my life when everything inside me wanted out. My body was wrecked. My spirit was running on fumes. I was deep in places where comfort was gone, certainty was gone, and every cell in my body was sending the same message: stop. That's when you meet the real battlefield. Not out on the road, not in the gym, not in some public moment where people can watch you struggle. I'm talking about that private war. Your feelings are trying to overthrow your standards. That is where logic has to step in like a damn commander. Logic says you knew this would be hard. Logic says pain is part of the contract. Logic says just because you got hit doesn't mean you're done. Logic says one bad moment does not erase the mission. Logic says keep fucking going. That's how you override the panic. That's how you override the emotions. Not by pretending you don't feel it, but by refusing to let it run the operation. You acknowledge the fear. You acknowledge the fatigue. You acknowledge the pain. And then you put willpower on top of all of it like a weight plate on a weak chest. You tell yourself the truth. I don't stop. Not because it feels good. Not because it's easy. Not because I'm guaranteed to win right now. I don't stop because that is who I decided to become. That mindset is everything. When you get knocked around, you get back in the boat. When the wave hits, you grab the paddle. When the road gets dark, you keep moving forward anyway. That is the code of someone who refuses to surrender his identity to a rough season. Anybody can be positive when life is smooth. Anybody can talk tough when they're rested, fed, comfortable, and ready. Hold the line, the fucking wheels. Can you stay in the fight when all your feelings are begging for mercy? That's the standard. Because life is short. Too short to spend it obeying fear. Too short to spend it negotiating with weakness. Too short to live half committed, half awake, half alive. You don't get endless time to become who you were meant to be. So stop handing your days over to hesitation, emotion, and excuses. Get hit and keep moving. Break and rebuild. Suffer and stay present. Feel the storm and still walk through it. That's how you live. Not by avoiding pain. Not by waiting for peace. Not by hoping struggle skips your address. You live by refusing to fucking stop. And when you live like that, when you build that kind of mind, life can still hit you, but it can't own you. I struggled with discipline for the majority of my life. That line right there is where a lot of you live, but you're too ashamed to say it out loud. You talk big. You say you want growth. You say you want peace, strength, control, a better body, a better mind, a better fucking life. But when that alarm goes off, the room is cold, the bed is warm, your phone is glowing, when your mind starts negotiating with weakness, you fold. And every time you fold, you don't just lose a morning. You lose trust in yourself. That was the real killer for me. It wasn't just being lazy. It wasn't just skipping the hard shit. It was knowing exactly what I needed to do and still not doing it. That's a different kind of pain. That's the kind of pain that eats your identity. You start looking in the mirror and see the liar. You tell yourself you're going to wake up early, train hard, clean up your mind, stop wasting time, stop living like a slave to your impulses, then you break your own word again and again and again. After a while, your mind starts building a case against you. That's how self-respect dies. A lot of people think discipline is just about getting more done. No. Discipline is the foundation of the relationship you have with yourself. Without it, your life becomes one long trail of unfinished promises. You stay exactly where you are, talking about potential, fantasizing about change, posting quotes, watching videos, listening to other men talk about greatness, while you remain stuck in the same weak patterns that are slowly ruining your life. That dream version of yourself, without discipline, he stays fictional. He never gets bored. And then here come the fake tough guys, the polished up, disciplined gurus, the ones who sit in front of cameras with perfect lighting, perfect timing, perfect routines, telling you the answer is simple. Just want it more. Just grind harder. Just be more disciplined, bro. That advice sounds powerful when you're desperate. But for a lot of people, it becomes poison. Because when you already feel like shit, when you already know you're underperforming, hearing that over and over doesn't build you up. It buries you. It makes you think the problem is that you're broken beyond repair. That you must not want success badly enough. That maybe you just don't have what it takes. So now you're not only undisciplined, you're hopeless too. Now your self-image drops lower. And once your self-image drops, your actions start obeying that low opinion. That's the trap. I've seen this in my own life. When I was overweight, spraying for cockroaches, eating garbage, living with no direction, I wasn't just physically weak. My mind was trained to accept less for myself. I had built an identity around being a victim, around finding comfort, around escaping the truth. So every hard task felt massive. Every act of discipline felt unnatural. I wasn't fighting one bad habit. I was fighting the person I had trained myself to become. That's why most people fail. They think discipline is one dramatic act of courage. It's not. It's a war against years of mental conditioning. And if all you do is scream motivation at somebody who already hates the man in the mirror, you're not helping. You're making him feel even more alone. You don't need more fake hype. You need truth. Real truth. The truth is that your lack of discipline is costing you your future. It is draining your confidence, wrecking your peace, and teaching your mind that your word means nothing. But the other truth is this: that can change. Not with fantasy, not with image, not with borrowed motivation. With brutal honesty and real work. So ask yourself this: how many more times are you going to betray yourself before you finally get sick enough of your own weakness to change? And seriously, thank you for being here, for facing this truth with me, and for being willing to start that fight. Everybody wants to believe they're one burst of motivation away from becoming disciplined. That's the lie. That's the bullshit that keeps people trapped for years. They think they can just get fired up enough, angry enough, inspired enough, then suddenly they become the kind of human being who does hard shit on command. But that's not how the mind works. Motivation is weak. Willpower is limited. And if your whole life is built on forcing yourself to resist temptation every damn hour of the day, you're eventually going to break. That's not weakness. That's reality. Think about it. If you spend all day telling yourself no to comfort, no to jumping, no to scrolling, no to porn, no to procrastination, no to every impossible, well, of course, eventually your mind gets tired. That mental muscle gets drained. You start the morning strong. But by afternoon, you're bargaining. By evening, you're folding. That's why so many people discipline in short bursts and not over years. They're trying to build a life on resistance instead of programming. I learned this the hard way. Back in my life was chaos, I thought toughness meant fighting every urge like it was some heroic battle. Every day felt like a cage match. I was constantly wrestling with the version of me that wanted ease, comfort, excuses, softness. And yet, sometimes I won. But winning like that cost so much energy that eventually I'd be empty. I'd have nothing for the next fight. That's what happens when your mind is still wired for weakness. Every good action feels unnatural. Every bad habit feels like home. That's why some people look disciplined and make it seem effortless. You think they're just stronger than you. Maybe some are, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is that the active struggle of force has become normal to them. It's not a debate in their head. It's not a negotiation. It's the default setting. That's the whole game. When something becomes part of your programming, you don't burn a massive energy deciding whether or not to do it. You just do it. Tying your shoes doesn't require a motivational speech. Brushing your teeth doesn't require some deep emotional breakthrough. Why? Because your mind already accepted it as part of what you do. That's where real discipline lives. Not in inner struggle. In identity-based automation. In a mind trained so deeply that the standard becomes normal. Now listen carefully, because this matters. I'm not saying willpower is useless. You need it. You need it when life punches you in the mouth. You need it when pain shows up, when tragedy shows up, when exhaustion hits, when you're facing the unexpected. But if you waste all of it every day on basic shit you should have already normalized, you don't have enough left when the real storms come. That's why the elite protect their mental energy. They simplify. They reduce decision fatigue. They build routines. They remove friction. Same clothes, same foods, same training windows, same standards. People call that boring. Good. Boring wins. Boring builds monsters. Because while everybody else is wasting energy deciding, the discipline or executing. So the mission is not to become a better negotiator with your excuses. The mission is to rewire the damn machine. To train your mind so the right actions become expected. To make discipline less about drama and more about design. Less about hype and more about habit. Less about surviving temptation and more about becoming someone who doesn't bow to it so easily in the first place. Once that shift starts happening, everything changes. Working out stops feeling like punishment. Getting up early stops feeling like torture. Focus stops feeling rare. You stop acting like a man trying to escape weakness and start becoming a man who has less weakness to escape from. That is the difference between people who visit discipline and people who live there. One group keeps trying to force a new life through exhausted willpower. The other group has trained their mind until the hard path becomes natural. And when the hard path becomes natural, you stop hoping it becomes dangerous. You finally are. She said you want discipline, but your reason is soft. That's the problem. You got a cute little goal, a surface level excuse dressed up as purpose, and you wonder why it gets crushed the second company shows up. You say you want to wake up early because it's productive. You say you want to work harder because you want success. You say you want to quit bad habits because you want a better life. That sounds nice. It sounds clean. It sounds respectful. But it's not enough to drag your ass out of bed when the room is cold and your mind is whispering, stay here, man. You can start tomorrow. That weak reason gets murdered by instant pleasure every time. Your brain is always scanning for the fastest route to relief, pleasure, and certainty. So if your goal is big and your reason is shallow, your mind will find a shortcut. You say you want freedom, your brain says, cool, here's a few hours of scrolling and distraction. You say you want peace, your brain says, fine, avoid the hard conversation, skip the workout, grab the cheap dopamine. You say you want to feel better about yourself, your mind will hand you temporary comfort dressed up like recovery while your real life slowly rots in the background. That's why so many people live on motivational content. They keep replaying speeches, videos, podcasts, clips, all because they need someone screaming in their ear to temporarily override the bullshit hitting their own head. I know that cycle. You get fired up for 15 minutes. You promise yourself this time is different. Then the emotion fades, and the old wiring takes over again. Why? Because you never got to the root. You never found a why that can punch harder than your excuses. You need two forces in your life. One is what you are moving toward. The other is what you are running from. And I'll tell you right now, what you are running from is often stronger. A man running from a fire will move faster than a man casually walking toward a reward. Pain clarifies, fear sharpens, consequence wakes people up. So ask the question most of you avoid because it hurts too much. What happens if I do not change? Not next week, not next month. What happens in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? If you stay the same undisciplined, distracted, half-committed person, what does your body look like? What does your mind feel like? What kind of husband, father, friend, leader, or human being do you become? What kind of regret is waiting for you if you keep choosing ease? You better sit with that. You better let it burn. Because when I learned to get up early, train, suffer, and stay consistent, it wasn't because I found some life hack. It's because I saw very clearly what the other world looked like. I knew what happened if I kept living beneath my standards. I knew what it felt like to be trapped in a weak mind, trapped in a body I was ashamed of, trapped in a life built on excuses. That vision of failure became a predator chasing me. And on the other side, I built a vision or suffering for it. Not some fake shiny image. Something real. Service. Purpose. Becoming a man who can carry weight and set a standard. That is what you need. Take your goal and ask why. Then ask why again. Then again. Keep digging until you hit something that makes your chest tighten. Something personal. Something painful. Something true. Because once your mind understands that discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you cannot afford to fail at becoming, the negotiation starts to die. And when the negotiation dies, your standards finally get a chance to live for real. Your final shift is the one most people never make. They get cleared for a few days, they find a strong reason, they build a little momentum, they stack a couple wins, and then they still fall off. Why? Because they are still performing discipline like an actor instead of becoming disciplined in their identity. They are borrowing behavior without changing the man who produces it. That shit does not last. You can force yourself to act different for a little while. Anybody can. You can wake up at 5 for 3 mornings. You can hit the gym for 2 weeks. You can stay off your phone for a weekend. You can quit a bad habit for a short stretch when emotion is high. But if deep down you still see yourself as lazy, inconsistent, weak, distracted, or broken, your actions will eventually crawl back to match that inner picture. The body follows the mind, but the mind also follows identity. And identity is a motherfucker if you never challenge it. Most people think this can't have more self-control because they're stronger. That's only part of it. The deeper truth is they often need to use less self-control because their life is no longer one endless internal argument. They don't spend all day debating whether to do the work. The work is already part of who they are. It's become normal. It's become expected. They've rehearsed that identity so many times to action that their mind now protects it. That's how it worked for me in certain areas before I understood any of this consciousness. There were seasons in my life when everything felt like war, but there were also things I did without question. Once training became part of who I was, it stopped feeling like a choice. I didn't wake up every morning asking, do I feel like suffering today? I woke up knowing that suffering was part of the contract. It was part of the contract. Pushing past comfort was part of the contract. That wasn't because I was special. It was because I had done it enough, with enough intention, that it fused with identity. That is where you need to go. Every disciplined act you take has to become evidence. Evidence that you are no longer the only truth. Evidence that the weak voice is losing authority. Evidence that your standards are becoming real. You wake up and you said you would. That is evidence. Training, you don't feel like it? Evidence. You put the phone down and finish the work? Evidence. You resist your habit and stay with the discomfort? Evidence. Every one of those moments is a broadcast towards your ability. And your brain loves consistency with identity. Once it starts believing this is who you are, it will begin working with you instead of against you. The friction drops. The resistance weakens. The hard thing does not always become easy, but it becomes less foreign, less dramatic, less negotiable. That's why real discipline looks calm. It doesn't need a speech every day. It doesn't need a crisis every day. It becomes part of the operating system. So when you feel lost, zoom out. Remember why you are doing this. Remember what kind of life you are walking toward and what kind of hell you're refusing to crawl back into. Then zoom back in and handle the next action like the disciplined person you claim you want to be. Not perfectly, not emotionally, not when it's convenient, consistently. That's how you build it. Clear reasons, rewire defaults, identity reinforced in action. Discipline is not some magical trait handed to the children of you. It is what happens when your mind starts identifying with comfort, starts identifying with execution. It is what happens when you stop seeing hard things, interruptions, and start seeing them as your standard.
Off this till tomorrow.
What happens when who you are and what you do finally line up. And once that happens,